Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 204 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined, though, as always, by the elusive Mr. Ayaz. Sumra Ayaz, how are you doing?
I'm good, Joe. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Right, let's try to dive through everything pretty quickly here. Let's start with the review part. We're going to start at the Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan. Just one fight to mention, former world champion Jorge Linares. It was fight number 51. He moved to 46 wins, and he's got, of course, those 5 losses. It ended up being a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Al Toyagon. On the judges' scorecards, it was pretty much a shutout win there for Linares, but I've heard, because I haven't seen the fight, but I've heard that he was hurt a couple times, I think, in the second round, I believe it was. So it seems like Toyagon went out there straight away, straight out the blocks, tried to hurt his man there, and, pretty much repeat what happened in Linares' last fight. And it seemed like there was a bit of a storm that Linares had to weather, but he certainly did, and he got the win. Again, it was a guy that, really shouldn't have been able to trouble him for a second, really. Of course, Toyagon with a record of 10-4 with one draw going in, now 10-5. Moving out now to York Hall, Bethnal Green, London, United Kingdom. This is the final card to mention for the review part of the show. Like I say, there really wasn't too much to go over. Wadi Camacho went into the fight, of course, with a record of 21-8. It was his 30th fight. He ended up getting TKO'd in the 5th round against Dion Juma. Again, Dion Juma, a guy that, he's been a pro for quite a while. He's had a stop-start career, and he hadn't really boxed any names. Camacho was probably the first name he's boxed, and he won well because he got him out of there. Camacho was down prior to the stoppage, I believe, and it was also for the vacant English cruiserweight title. So Dion Juma 12-0, a perfect record. And the following day, Camacho took to social media and announced his retirement. So he's had 30 fights and out. I just want to quickly wish Wadi Camacho all the best from myself and Ayaz. Wadi Camacho is pretty much the York Hall champion. I mean, he's had many, many fights time and time again in York Hall. He's beaten the likes of Iqbal. I think he had a couple fights with Iqbal. The fight against Isaac Chamberlain was just a fight I'll never forget. It was a brilliant, brilliant fight. Even though Chamberlain got the win and his shoulder popped out, and he had to really bite down on the gum shield, to say the least. He showed a lot of character, but Wadi Camacho showed his toughness and his grit as well in that fight. He's brought us a few brilliant fights, Camacho. It's a shame, really, because he only had 30 fights. He could have had a few more. He was a good fighter, but again, he took quite a lot of punishment, and it's probably the right time. I think he goes out there on the loss, not the way he would have wanted to go out, but, he did himself proud. Even his fight against Steven Simmons, when he started saying, yeah, buddy, all the time, and he called Steven Simmons the Cookie Monster. He had some good rivalries. Even him and Lawrence Okoli. People are going to forget this, but he rocked Lawrence Okoli in their fight just for a couple of seconds. He was a good fighter, Camacho, and he probably didn't really achieve what he could have. I think he was a bit of an underachiever, but a tough guy, and he really would have fought anyone on the British scene, and he did. So credit to him. And I'm just going to quickly share a real quick thing here. I remember being at a press conference. I think it was actually for Jake Ball and Craig Richards. So that was a Copper Box show, if I'm not mistaken. And Lawrence Okoli, I think, was fighting on the bill, and Camacho came to the press conference. I think it was this one, but anyway, Camacho was there with his little kid. He's got a little daughter, very young little daughter, cute little girl, and she saw some belts on the table, you know, like the top table, the press conference table. Camacho wasn't up on the press conference thing. I don't think he was fighting on the bill. He was sitting down in the front row, and she's gone like, Daddy, look at those belts. You know, can I go and see those belts? And Waddy said to his daughter, he goes, no, you don't need to touch those belts. You got your own ones at home. And I remember just hearing that. It put a smile on my face. I mean, that's a cool thing to be able to say. I mean, you know, just imagine having the belts at home for your kids to play with as toys. You know, the achievements that you achieved on your own back, that you've put yourself through hard work to get to. You've put your life on the line, so to speak, to win. I mean, that's a brilliant achievement. That just put a smile on my face. That was a cute little thing there that happened. And I mean, I don't know what titles I'm going to be able to show my kids one day. Probably the Burger King title. But that is it. That is it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part one, the last thing to do, of course, is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Joseph Parker. Joseph, welcome back on the show, my man.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thanks for having me back on.
It's always a pleasure having you on, Joe. So, last time we spoke, it was in June, not too long ago. It was just before the fight against Alex Leapai. I feel like that fight turned out to be a much tougher fight than a lot of people expected. Just a couple words on the fight, Joe. How do you sum up your performance and, you know, the fight itself?
When I look back at that fight, I think it was, you know, what's the fight that's been locked in now? I think that was a good sort of fight to sort of lead me into this fight that I have now coming up October 26th. Going into that fight, you know, I felt good, felt strong, fit, you know, and I think, you know, as an opponent, sort of last minute change, I think fighting Alex Leapai, you know, the come forward style and very defensive, didn't really create a lot of opportunity for myself. I caught him with a lot of good shots though, and eventually the ref did his job to stop it. But I guess, you know, it was good to get those rounds under my belt, you know, 10 rounds.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't believe how tough Leapai was because, I mean, you were landing bombs, really. I mean, not just to the face, but also to the body early on. But on to the next one you mentioned there. This fight has been a fight that we've been talking about as fans for a long time. I personally wasn't sure it would ever happen, but it's on October 26th, O2 Arena. Your opponent, Dereck Chisora. A fight here that I know you'll be more than ready for, more than motivated for as well.
I'm very motivated. Chisora is one of those fighters that's been in the game for a long time, and he's you know, he's had his ups and downs, but he's coming off a very good win against Spilka. Before that, he had another good win. You know, he was doing really well with the Dillian White fight until he got caught with a really nice left hand. So he's a fighter that, I mean, even though he's a lot of people say he's coming to the end of his career, he's actually done a lot better towards, you know, this side of his career, and I think he's the type of fighter that rises to the occasion and rises to the opponents that he faces, and he's always going to come prepared and ready, and he's one of those fighters that puts the pressure on, throws all the punches, and just goes for it. So he's a very entertaining fighter, and I think fighting someone like him, it'll bring the best out of me.
And how do you rate Chisora as a fighter, Joe? How dangerous is he in your mind?
Oh, he's always going to be a dangerous fighter. He's like I said, he put on a great performance with Spilka, you know, finishing him in the second round. So he's one of those fighters that, again, if you have to prepare very well for what he brings, and he brings pressure, he brings combinations, he brings a lot of punches, a lot of big bombs. So, you know, he's one of those fighters that you can't underestimate and you can't take lightly.
And you've boxed some real good fighters, you know. You've got a real solid resume amongst the heavyweights in the division. How or where does he rank amongst the toughest guys that you've boxed? Obviously, the likes of Ruiz, the likes of Anthony Joshua, the likes of Dillian White. Where does he rank amongst those guys?
You know, those guys, you know, actually, when I look at my resume, I fought some great guys out there, and guys that are, you know, guys that are at the top of the division. You know, Ruiz, there's Joshua, there's White, and I think Chisora is pretty close. You know, he's one of those, like I said, one of those fighters who has a lot of experience because he's faced a lot of those top guys as well. He's faced Dillian White, he's faced Fury, and he's faced Pulev. So I think he's pretty up there.
He's faced Vitaly Klitschko as well, of course.
And Vitaly Klitschko as well. So he's faced everyone. So you know, he's one of those fighters that he's not scared, and he doesn't shy away from challenges, and he's always prepared and ready.
Did you happen to see, I'm sure you must have seen it, some of the clips from the press conference? Did you see the way he kind of went on a bit of an outburst for a while?
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, Chisora, I thought that he's sort of changed a bit and gotten a bit more calmer, and he's but I think after the press conference you can just see that he's still, he can pull that out at any time he wants to.
Yeah. And I want to get your opinion. I think we may have spoke about this last time because we spoke just after the Joshua Ruiz fight had already happened, but the rematch, I mean, how do you see it happening? Obviously, it's taking place in Saudi Arabia in December. What do you think now? We may have spoke about this before, but how do you see that one playing out? Who comes out victorious if you had to pick?
If I had to pick, to be honest, I have no idea. I see Ruiz, and I know that both guys are going to be working very, very hard to put on, a great performance, because it's going to be, it's not in anyone's hometown, or there's no home advantage in Saudi Arabia. So both guys are going to be, they're preparing in their camps, they're flying there. And I think the way that I've seen Joshua train, and from what I've seen on online, and that he's trimmed down a lot. I think with Ruiz having the belt, he's got a lot of confidence going into this fight. So I for me personally, I still think it's a 50-50 fight. A lot of people say that Joshua's still the favorite to win if he changes up a few things, but you can never sort of take anything away from Andrew Ruiz. He's one of those fighters that, combination, speed, if he catches you, So for me, it's a 50-50, and I'm looking forward to it.
And your fight with Chisora, Joe, I know that you're not a guy that likes to talk too much and predict things, but how do you see the fight playing out? I mean, when I think about it, I think it's a fight that definitely goes into the second half of the fight. How do you see it playing out, though? Forget about what I think.
The way I see Chisora, I think a fighter like himself that comes forward, he's going to create a lot of opportunity for myself. And I know that if I catch him clean, going into a fight, you always want to put on a great performance and you want to look devastating. And that's the reason why that we go into these fights, because we know we have confidence within ourselves, we back ourselves, and we want to put on a great performance to attract more people to support you. So the way that I see it is that obviously I back myself to win, but I want to win in good fashion, And so I don't know what round, I don't know. I've never picked rounds, but I just hope that I'm able to catch him and put him out there.
And who do you target, Joe? Because, I mean, stylistically, this fight here with Chisora, I'm going to say what I honestly think. I think that your work rate, movement and punch power will just make Chisora look pretty bad, to be honest. So I'm strongly thinking you're going to win this fight. And not too many people wanting to say that over here, but I'm just going to say it. I think you win this fight in good fashion. But who do you target after that? Because obviously you've got, AJ tied up with Ruiz, Wilder tied up with Ortiz, Fury tied up with, a couple guys like Wallin, and obviously, the Wilder rematch. Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of top guys are all tied up. I mean, who are you kind of looking at, if there is anyone, for your next one or two fights even? Or are you just not looking that far ahead?
To be honest, I'm not looking far ahead. The full focus for myself is Chisora, and if everything goes well and I get him out of the way, I don't care who I fight. Just give me anyone. I'm one of those fighters who I just want to keep busy. I want to have the best fights and the biggest fights that I can get, and I'll face anyone. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I truly believe that as well, Joe. Finally, just before I let you go, any closing words at all to our listeners that support you over here?
Listen, all I want to say I've gained a lot of support from the UK fans, and it's like, New Zealand's my home, Vegas is my home, Samoa's my home, and I actually call the UK my other home because I'm there a lot of the time, fighting, and so we've gained a lot of support and a lot of fans, and all I want to say is that I'm really thankful and appreciate the support that we're being given, not only myself, but my team, my family being looked after, everyone coming up and saying, that all the best. So just want to say thanks for the great support and showing the love when we're there, and we really look forward to being back in the UK very soon. Hopefully could put on a good performance for everyone, and so they can keep supporting us and keep wanting us to do good.
Absolutely. Well said, Joe. Listen, it is always a pleasure catching up with you, my brother. Best of luck for October 26th, and we'll certainly speak sometime after.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. Normally we do the news, but there isn't really anything that's happened this week just yet anyway. I mean, we're obviously recording the show. It takes a while to gather everything, so if anything does happen, I will discuss it, or mention it at least at the very end of the show. But let's move on now to the preview part here. We're going to start at the Caesars Palace in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Again, tomorrow night we've got Abbas Barao, 6-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Abdul Ghani Saber, who has a record of 8-0 with 1 draw. Saber, I think, has got 8 wins by knockout, and that 1 draw came against a debutant, I believe, and the debutant hasn't ever fought since, so it's hard to know how good he is. But again, Barao, a very good amateur. He beat Carlos Molina in the pros very, very controversially in Germany. Carlos Molina actually gave me the gloves that he boxed Abbas Barao in. I've got those in my house. But yeah, shout out to Barao, because he's a promising talent, and credit to him for fighting Carlos Molina in like his 4th or 5th fight, something like that. Even though I don't think he won the fight. But anyways, also on the bill, friend of the show, Andrew Selby, 11-1. No opponent just yet for him, but it's weird to see him fighting in Dubai. Moving out now to the Madison Square Garden Theatre again. This is all tomorrow night, so this one's going to be on Sky Sports and of course the Zone for our US listeners. The undercard, let's start with that. Daniel Yelusinov, 7-0, the 2016 Olympic gold medalist. He takes on the undefeated Reshad Hicks, who is 12-0 with 1 draw. Also on the bill, Heather Hardy, 22-0. She takes on Amanda Serrano. I think Serrano's a 6 or 7 weight world champion. She is a complete legend, and she likes to fight in MMA as well as boxing. Honestly, she is just a pure fighter. I'm a huge fan of her. Never had a boyfriend, never had a phone, really hasn't got many friends. She just talks to her sister, who also boxes, and her manager. She's just a die-hard gym rat, pretty much. And what a fighter. You cannot disrespect her at all. 36-1 with 1 draw. That fight, by the way, is over 10 2-minute rounds for the interim WBC and the WBO World Female Featherweight title. Also on that bill, very good fight here, and we've gone to the predictions on it. Ayaz, Michael Hunter, 17-1. Of course, that 1 loss to Usyk on points. This is for his WBA Intercontinental Heavyweight title. In the other corner, former opponent of David Price, Sergey Kuzmin, 15-0. Kuzmin, most recent win, I believe, was against Joey Dawejko, who supposedly had Joshua in all sorts of trouble before the Ruiz fight, but that is a rumour. This fight is happening. Hunter Kuzmin, Ayaz, talk to me.
I think it's going to be a very good fight, but if I'm going to go with a win, I'm going to go to Hunter to win by points.
Okay, short and sweet. Hunter on points. Let me just see what the listeners said about that one. I had it here, and I've completely lost it. I think it was very wide to Hunter. Let me just quickly confirm. Hunter by knockout. I think I'm going to agree with that. Hunter's been looking brilliant, actually. A string of knockouts. He's been really impressing. One of the best fighters and one of the most underrated fighters in the heavyweight division, hands down. He actually tried to fly me out to New York for this fight. Logistically, it just couldn't work. But I wish I could have been there. 57% of people going with Hunter by KO, 39% going with Hunter on points, no one at all backing Kuzmin for the knockout, and only 4% backing Kuzmin on points. So quite surprising to see how stacked it is in Hunter's favour. I know he's the favourite, but that's a tough fight. A lot of hardcore boxing fans think that's really, really tough to call a winner there. The main event, though, a brilliant fight, by the way. Devin Haney, 22-0. It's for the interim WBC World Lightweight title. So Devin Haney gets a crack there. It's like a late kind of change. I don't think there was a belt on the line before, but this one again, like I just said, is for the interim WBC World title. In the other corner, Zor Abdullayev, 11-0 as a professional. Half the experience in terms of pro fights, but Abdullayev was a real seasoned amateur, but then again so was Devin Haney, really. But Abdullayev holds a brilliant win over Hank Lundy, which some people probably forget about. He beat him on points, but he won it quite clearly, and that was a few fights back now. So to beat a guy like Hank Lundy when you've only had, I think it was about 8 fights at the time, for me that's a big statement there. That is a brilliant fight. Like I say, for those that don't know about Abdullayev, you're perhaps thinking it's another dull opponent for Haney. It's really not. This is a big step up, and this is the toughest opponent Devin Haney would have fought thus far, believe you me. Moving out now to the York Hall in Bethnal Green, London. This one is a Frank Warren card. It's going to be on ESPN Plus, and I believe it's going to be on BT Sport. Let's start with the undercard here. We have Umar Sadiq, 6-1. He's in a 6-rounder against Luke Blackledge, 26-8 with 2 draws. Great fight, really. Sadiq, obviously, he was thrown in the deep end a little bit when he took on Zach Chelli. Both men put it all on the line. They put their undefeated records on the line, but Sadiq came up short, and he showed that he is a good fighter, even though he lost. It was a brilliant, brilliant fight there at the Brentwood Centre. Can't believe it actually happened there. But yeah, he gets in against Blackledge, who for me is past his best, but is still a good test for him, actually. He's got way more experience as a pro, Blackledge. Also on the bill, we just spoke about him there, Zach Chelli, 7-0. He takes on Welshman Cody Davies, 9-0. That's going to be a cracking fight there over 10 rounds. There really should be a belt on the line because both men are great fighters, but there's nothing on the line, unfortunately, just the pride. And believe me, that is one of the fights that I think is just, a brilliant, brilliant fight, really. There's a few fights this weekend that I think are unmissable pretty much, and those fights are Michael Hunter against Kuzmin, Devin Haney against Abdullayev, we mentioned them, and this one, Zach Chelli against Cody Davies, obviously a few levels down from the two fights I've mentioned there, but trust me, that is going to be a brilliant, brilliant fight. I'm so interested in that one. Dex Spellman, 16-2, he takes on Shakam Pitters, 12-0. That one's for the English light heavyweight title. Obviously, Pitters, the guy that came out on top in that tournament, the Ultimate Boxer tournament. Good fighter, Shakam Pitters. Very, very big for the weight as well. That one is for, like I say, the light heavyweight English title. Brilliant fight there, over 10 rounds. Also on the bill, Horny Harvey Horn, Triple H, 6-0. He's in an 8-rounder against journeyman Elvis Gwillan, who's 9-57 with 4 draws. And top in the bill, if I'm not mistaken. Also, almost missed this one here. Brad Foster, 11-0 with 1 draw. He fights for the British Super Bantamweight title. He puts it on the line against Lucian Reed, 8-0 with 1 draw. So, that's a brilliant fight. Once again, Lucian Reed, a guy that's been begging for a step up, and he gets it here. So we're going to finally see how good he is. So this bill is full of brilliant fights. It's honestly a great, great card. If you can get down there, I think there may still be a couple tickets on the door. Do not miss it. It's the place to be on Saturday night. And top in the bill, Sonny Edwards, 12-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Rosendo Guarneros. That one's for Sonny's IBF International Super Flyweight title. Guarneros 16-2 with 2 draws. Sonny Edwards 12-0. Obviously, Charlie Edwards the other week managed to retain his title, but not in the fashion that he would have liked. And Sonny gave a real honest interview to IFL TV, and he basically said, we got saved there, we got let off the hook there because Charlie was going to probably lose. They were big words to come from Sonny. I was quite surprised to see him be that honest. But to be fair to him, he's a very honest guy. And it's not the first time he's come out with something that could potentially upset a few people, even those people close to him. But he's come out and said it because he's quite an honest guy. He's a friend of the show, Sonny Edwards. He's been on before. And he's one of my favourite fighters to watch, believe it or not. So all the best to Sonny. Moving out now to the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, USA. Let's start here with the undercard. Again, a brilliant fight. One that's gone under the radar, silly enough as it is, because it shouldn't have gone over or under the radar. Ryan Garcia, 18-0, the Golden Boy prospect. He takes on Avery Sparrow, 10-1. Again, Avery Sparrow in his last fight took on, I think it was Hank Lundy, and a lot of people, including myself, thought Hank Lundy would win, and Avery Sparrow had him down a couple of times, and I think he beat him on points. So I'm really impressed with Avery Sparrow. He is a good puncher, and he should give a good test there to Ryan Garcia. So I'm really intrigued to see how that one plays out. Also on the card, but the main event, Jaime Munguia, 33-0. It's for his WBO World Super-Welterweight title. He takes on Patrick Alotai, or Alotai, I think it's said. 40-3 Alotai has one of the most padded records I've ever seen. I'm not going to say, by the way, Luigi, if you're listening, I'm not saying that Italians are padded anymore. That is banned. Ayaz isn't allowed to say it either. Italians are no longer padded. Patrick Alotai takes it to a new level. This is the best padding you'll ever see. 40 wins against guys that I've never even heard of. Lots and lots of them had losing records. This is one of the worst padded records I've ever seen. It's an easy touch here for Munguia, you'd feel. Moving out now, though, to the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. it's a bit of a star-studded kind of undercard, really, even though the fights aren't fantastic. Let's start here with a 10-round fight between Carlos Cuadras, 38-3 with 1 draw, against Jose Maria Cardenas, who's 17-4. Felix Valera, 18-2. He's in a 10-rounder against Vyacheslav Shabransky, 20-2. That one should be quite interesting. Our very own friend of the show, Isaac Lowe, undefeated, 18-0 with 3 draws. He gets in against Ruben Hernandez, 25-4 with 2 draws. That's a 10-rounder there. You might have remembered the name Ruben Garcia Hernandez because he actually boxed Michael Conlon back in March, and he went the distance with him. He's also the guy that fought Nonito Donaire a couple of years back, and he went the distance with Donaire. He's only actually been stopped the one time, and that was against Randy Caballero back in 2016. So he's mixed it at quite a high level. So I really like that fight there for Isaac Lowe. He needs to be on his A game to win that one and remain undefeated. He certainly doesn't want another draw by any means. But yeah, the fight with Valera and Shabransky. Again, Shabransky's not a bad fighter. He can really punch. I mean, he's got the second round knockout loss to Sergei Kovalev, and since then he hasn't been active really. He's had the one fight, because that Kovalev loss was back in 2017. And like I say, he's had the one fight and he's back against Valera. But other than that, he was a solid fighter really, Shabransky. His other loss came to Sullivan Barrera. Valera's another guy who I think we thought was going to be really good. He's a tough guy. He got in there with Dmitry Bivol when Dmitry Bivol was only 6-0, and he went the distance with him and lost. And then he took on Sullivan Barrera. He lost to him. So both men have got the loss to Barrera, but they're both tough guys and they can both punch. So it's a tough fight. I really, really like the matchmaking there. That could be a 50-50 barn burner actually. Also on the bill, a great fight here. Jose Pedraza, 26-2. It's the battle of the Jose's. He takes on Jose Zepeda, 30-2. Obviously Zepeda, former opponent of Terry Flanagan, and he also boxed Jose Ramirez in his fight before the last one, and he gave Ramirez a couple of problems. That's over 10 rounds there. I'm missing out a couple of predictions here, I think, Ayaz. How do you see that one going between Pedraza and Zepeda, by the way, the battle of the Jose's?
I don't really know much about Jose Pedraza because the last time I saw him fought was actually Flanagan. But if I'm going to,
that's Zepeda. You saw Pedraza against Lomachenko and all that. Remember?
Sorry, Zepeda. Yes, and I remember. I don't know much about Jose Zepeda. Last time I watching the fight was against Terry Flanagan. I remember watching Jose Pedraza fighting Gervonta Davis, Stephen Smith as well, and also Vasyl Lomachenko. Yeah. If I'm going to go with the probably win, I'm going to have to go win with Jose Pedraza to win by points.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. The listeners agree on that as well. Zepeda, that fight with Flanagan, that's where his shoulder came out, and Flanagan won the vacant world title in bad fashion, really, because it kind of spoiled what was going to be a good fight. I also missed this one out, Ayaz. Zach Chelli against Cody Davies. I mean, it's probably going to be hard for you to split the pair because that's a brilliant fight between two undefeated prospects, but I missed out the prediction. The listeners have gone with Chelli on points. Oh, that's a hard one. That is a hard one. I think I'm going to go with... Oh, that's such a hard one. That is such a hard one. I think I'm going to go Chelli on points, but that is a 50-50 if there is one. Boy, oh boy.
Okay, if I'm going to go with a winner on that one, I'm going to have to go with Zach Chelli to win on points. I think he's an upcoming star, and I'm going to go with him to win.
Yeah, he looks pretty special, Zach Chelli. I'll never forget when he came out on his debut to the Sopranos theme tune. He made a fan of me straight away. And, I've been watching him ever since then. And he's a big puncher. He's a very exciting fighter. But yeah, we all agree there on Chelli on points. So should be interesting. Also on this undercard, Emmanuel Navarrete, the dog-based slayer, 28-1. He puts his WBO World Super Bantamweight title on the line against Juan Miguel Elorde. Now, this guy Elorde holds a record of 28-1. The one loss came way back in 2011 to a guy called Jerry Guevara, who only ended up having a few fights and ended up retiring in 2015. So you can't read too much into it, but you can look at his wins, and they're there for everyone to see. He's not boxing at the top level. I mean, I cannot believe he's even got himself a ranking with the WBO, to be honest. He's boxed for the Asian Pacific title a couple of times, but against real poor opposition. And I'm guessing that's probably how he got his ranking. But honestly, this is another real easy touch for Navarrete. And the size of him to actually still make super bantamweight is scary. And he only boxed a few weeks ago. I think he only boxed it was probably about 4 weeks ago he boxed. I'm sure he boxed about 4 weeks ago. And, he's back again against this guy here. They've got exact same records, 28-1. But Navarrete is going to completely blow him away, I'd feel. And the main event, Ayaz, Tyson Fury, 28-0 with that one controversial draw with Deontay Wilder. He takes on Otto Wallin, 20-0. Few people not happy with the fight, Ayaz. I mean, it definitely shouldn't be a pay-per-view card, but talk to me about the fight itself. Otto Wallin, obviously a Swedish pro.
I mean, it's going to be, it shouldn't be a pay-per-view in my opinion as well, obviously, because just the name of the fight. But obviously, I think from this point of view, I think it's going to be like another Tom. It's going to be the same fight like a Tom Schwartz, and I think that Tyson Fury is going to stop him.
Yeah. Do you think it's early or do you think it goes late?
I think Tyson Fury is just going to play back and obviously just gets a bit more rounds. And obviously he's knocked out Schwartz, and obviously needs a bit more round before he faces Wilder. And obviously, I think it's going to stop him in the late 6, 7 rounds.
Okay, so around about the midway point, yeah. The listeners also agree in Fury by knockout, 68% and 20% Fury on points. No one really giving Wallin a chance. 8% with a knockout, 4% with the points. Yeah, I mean, you've got to back Fury to win by knockout. Again, I think it goes a few rounds. I don't think it's as quick and as one-sided as Schwartz. I think Fury's going to look good. I think Fury's going to play with him a little bit, like you said, Ayaz. But I actually think Wallin's a decent-ish fighter. I don't think he's as bad as the negativity he's been getting. I don't think he's that bad. But, it should still be a one-sided Fury win. I'm sure it will be. Like I say, we're trying to whiz through everything as quick as possible this week. We don't want to keep you waiting. There's a lot going on in our personal lives as well. So let's try to whiz through this as quick as we have been. Let's move now to the Resort World Catskills Casino in Catskill, New York, USA. One fight to mention actually over here. A man that we know very well, Carlos Takam. Today's record is 36-5 with one draw. It's a weird one because I don't know why he's fighting out here, but he takes on Craig Lewis, 14-3 with one draw. You look at the record and it's not appeasing really. I mean, especially his last 4 fights. 3 losses in his last 4 fights. 1 to Junior Farr, 1 to Jermaine Franklin, 1 to Demetrius Banks. It's a bad look. I mean, he's got a win against Galen Brown, a journeyman who Eddie Chambers knocked out a few years back. And other than that, I mean, I'm looking down this record and it is terrible. This is going to be... I mean, I wouldn't even sanction this fight because that is just... I just can't believe it's been sanctioned, to be honest. This is poor. So, yeah, I'm expecting Carlos Takam to win that by a landslide, really. An early knockout, in fact. Well, I say that. The one thing about Lewis, he hasn't been stopped in his 3 losses, so maybe it goes a few rounds, but Takam's so strong, he's like a bull. That's a 10-rounder there. Will it go the distance? Probably not. And the final bill to mention happens at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center in Pennsylvania, USA. Just one fight to mention, really. Good friend of the show, Michael Fox, the very, very tall 140 fighter. I think he stands at 6'4". 20-1 is the record. The one loss was very, very highly disputed, very controversial. He probably should still be undefeated in my book. He takes on Yudi Bernardo, who's got a record of 25-4. That is over 10 rounds there. Michael Fox in a tough fight once again. I mean, he's had a couple of fights back-to-back now with real good amateurs. In his last fight, he beat the Olympic gold medalist Fazladin Gabe Nazarov. He beat him fair and square over 10 rounds. And like I say, Bernardo, a bit different, probably not as tough of a test as those guys, a little bit more crude, but he has mixed it at a very high level. He's boxed the likes of Mario Barrios, Mason Menard, a couple of other guys. So should be interesting, but of course we're backing our man Michael Fox to get the win. We like I say, we have tried to whiz through everything as quick as possible this week. There's a lot going on in the background. That is everything for the preview part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 2, of course, the final thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBC and IBF super middleweight champion, but also the undisputed reigning middleweight champion of the world. It is, of course, Miss Claressa Shields. Claressa, welcome back on the show.
Okay, thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure, Claressa. We last spoke back in February. It was just before the Christina Hammer fight. How did you sum up your performance that night, Claressa? Because from my point of view, I mean, I was massively looking forward to the fight. On paper, it was supposed to be competitive, but you absolutely dominated her, and you showed that you are on another level to such a brilliant fighter, which Hammer actually is.
I think my performance against Hammer was, I guess they can say my best performance as of today. You know, like not like my best performance ever, but as far as in my professional career, I was the most comfortable in the ring with her, and I showed a lot of things that people thought that I couldn't do, like jab, first of all, head movement, defense. I already knew from watching film with Hammer, I knew that I could beat her, but I guess people thought she was just supposed to get in there and run me over, but that wasn't the case, and I was able to become undisputed champion in 9 fights. So I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, like I say, I was really impressed. I mean, you were just unbelievable that night. Definitely your best performance in my eyes. Obviously, you won all the belts at middleweight. You became the undisputed champion of the world. Was that the quickest it's ever been done, just 9 fights?
Yeah, I believe so.
Excellent, all 4 belts.
Yep.
And on to the next one, Ivana Habazin for the vacant WBO 154-pound world title. Obviously, this is your chance to become the quickest freeweight world champion in history. And obviously, it's a lot harder to move down the weights rather than move up. And, you've been moving down. What will it mean to you?
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. What will it mean to you personally, Claressa, to beat Lomachenko's record of being the quickest freeweight world champion and just to do it in 10 fights?
Just to step aside from Lomachenko, it means a lot to me that, that I'm disciplined enough to even make 154. To make 154 pounds. I haven't been that size since I was 16 years old, and now I'm 24, and here I am in the best shape of my life, getting down to 154 pounds for history. And, it's going to be a great feat beating Lomachenko's record, but then it's just showing that not only men can do it, but women can do it too. And I'm just so happy that, I was chosen by God to be that woman. So I'm the woman who got to go down and wait to capture this 3rd weight class and do it within 10 fights. And I'm just super excited about all of it and just really ready to perform on the 5th.
And of course, you've boxed in Michigan before as a pro, but this time the fight actually happens in Flint. It's pretty much on your doorstep. Again, I'm sure that gives you the extra 10% push to be performing in front of your fans, your friends, your family, probably some of your neighbors as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't really matter where I fight at. I go out there and perform the same way. But it's just great to know that I could do it all. I could do it wherever it's supposed to happen at, how it's supposed to happen, and it's going to be a great push for my hometown because they've been with me the whole time. They've traveled all the way to Vegas to see me fight, to LA, to Atlantic City, to Detroit. Now we get to finally do it in Flint, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. And about your opponent, Ivana Habazin, obviously a former world champion in her own right. She holds a record of 20-3. She hasn't lost a fight since before you turned professional. She's a decent fighter, Claressa. I mean, a lot of people don't know too much about her, but what do you know about her?
I know the same thing, that she's a decent fighter. I do my homework on all the girls that I, potentially have to fight. And I've been new about her. People may not pay a lot of attention to her, but I pay attention to anybody who's close to any weight class that I'm at. So I watched some film of her. I've seen her when she fought against Cecilia Brackett. I've seen a few of her other fights. And I can just say, like, she's quick on her hands. She's, very elusive. And she throws wild punches. And that's from what I see for right now.
And of course, another factor of this fight, as you mentioned, the weight cut. I mean, I personally didn't actually think you'd end up going down to 154. I'm going to be honest. I know that you said it was your goal early on in your career to do that, and fair play to you for following it through. It can't be easy though, Claressa. I mean, how easy / difficult has it been to get down to 154? Because, like you say, you haven't weighed that light for a long time.
Losing weight in general is just not something that any boxer loves to do. You're not ever going to meet a fighter who say, I enjoy losing weight. You're just not gonna do it. I'm strictly doing it for the history, and my body is actually made for 154 and 160, and my natural weight is walking around at 168, 175-ish. So, 54 it's a challenge, but it isn't that big of a challenge. It's just more of a mental challenge as far as in, me being able to eat how I eat and being able to, have a cheat day, twice a week, once a week. Now my cheat days have been limited and, not a lot of sugar intake and a lot of running and drinking a whole lot of water. And, just with that, that can be discipline in itself, and then on top of actually training for the fight. So it's a few things added, but nothing I haven't dealt with before.
And I want to get your take on a couple of other things. We haven't spoke since the Katie Taylor fight against Delphine Persoon. Did you watch that at all, Claressa? If so, who did you have winning that fight?
I was there live.
Ah, okay. Who did you have winning?
I actually thought it was a draw. I thought nobody won.
Okay, yeah.
I thought Katie had a strong beginning of the fight using her speed, and I feel like Delphine held the power over the fight, and toward the end of the fight, looked like Katie Taylor was close to almost being stopped, from the pressure of Delphine Persoon. And I don't know if that's because she maybe punched herself out early on, but she was taking some really big shots the last 5 rounds of the fight. And, I either would have had a 6-4 for Delphine Persoon or a 6-4 for Katie, but it looked like it was a 5-5 fight to me, and that they should definitely run it back and see who's the winner.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It was a brilliant fight. Obviously, you mentioned you were ringside. That also means you would have been ringside for the huge upset that happened a few fights later. How do you see the rematch playing out, Claressa? I know you're a massive fan of Anthony, but in your honest opinion, December 7th in Saudi Arabia, how do you see it playing out?
December 7th, I see it playing out for Anthony Joshua. People are going to say I'm biased, but I am. When it comes to AJ, but I think every fighter needs to have that loss, and I feel like that loss was needed. Like AJ, a few of AJ fights before the Andy Ruiz fight, I'm like, I was asking myself, like, where is his dog at? Where is his mean streak at that he used to have? And sometimes when you get comfortable and you're successful and money and you win all the fights, sometimes like that hunger can go away a little bit. I think that Andy Ruiz may have gave Anthony Joshua back his hunger, because now not only did you beat him, but you knocked him out, embarrassed him, and now you see we have a different Anthony Joshua. You see Anthony Joshua now who's clapping back, one who's not taking no shit from nobody. You can definitely see that he's upped his training, he's slimming down, and just his attitude and his persona now is just like, he's mad, and I've been like wanting to see that out of him, and I think that he's going to go out there and really like put it all on the line to make sure he doesn't lose to Andy Ruiz again. And Andy Ruiz is so comfortable right now. He's walking to the press conference with his little Mexican hat on and stuff, and he's buying Gucci shoes, he eating pizza. This dude is living his best life. He just became the first Mexican heavyweight champion. So he's kind of living it up right now. He bought his mom a house and cars and stuff. And it's a lot to take on being a world champion. It really is. And I feel like Andy Ruiz may be like, he may just be living in this moment, but he has to come back to reality that the fight will happen again, and that in order for him to remain champ, he got to pull out way more than what he did last fight, knowing that Anthony Joshua isn't going to just lay down for him this fight, that he's coming prepared, knowing like Andy Ruiz is no joke. So now when you know that somebody is no joke, you take them way more serious and you train way more harder, and I think that AJ is going to get the win. That's what I think.
It's an interesting point you make, because we've seen it time and time again where, a fighter takes a loss and it can be a blessing in disguise. It can kind of make you or break you in a fight that big. So it will be interesting to see how he comes back. And, Yeah, Andy Ruiz is certainly living his best life. I don't know if you saw his birthday celebrations; they were quite something. Claressa, what do you see? What do you see yourself doing next? I mean, a lot of boxers don't like to look too far ahead, but you seem to do it from time to time. As I said, you predicted an eventual move down in weight to 154. Can you see past this next fight? I mean, obviously, Savannah Marshall's now signed with Eddie Hearn. She's been talking about trying to fight you in 2020. Have you looked that far? How do you see the next couple fights playing out, if you've looked that far at all?
One, Savannah Marshall don't run shit. We gonna fight when I want to fight. And I've been wanting to fight her since I turned pro. I wanted to fight her this year. And now she thinks that her and Eddie going to call some shots and tell me that we're going to fight her in 2020. No. I'm going to fight her when I'm ready, in which I've been ready. But she want to talk about she want to get 16 fights and all these fights and all this crap. She don't run the show. You know what I mean? I'm the middleweight undisputed champ. So Savannah Marshall can get her ass kicked whenever she's ready. But they're not going to make me move away from my plans. I'm going to be at 54 for my next fight. And it depends on how I feel during this fight and how I perform. I'd rather I stay at 54 or rather I go back up to 160. And if I feel good at 154, I want to become undisputed at 154. I would love to rematch Hannah Gabriel not because the fight that we had was close, but I feel like I dominated her. It's just more because she's one of the belt holders up at 154, and she does a little smack. She does a little, trash talk about how she knocked me down, but I keep having to remind everybody, like, I got knocked down and I got back up and I won a fight, and I won every round after the knockdown. So she's doing a little bit of smack, so I'll let her smash her again. Any of the belt holders, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really talk about fighters who don't got belts. Like, Savannah Marshall, she may have beat me when I was 17 years old, but she didn't beat me after I won my Olympic gold medals. She beat me before, and I won 2 Olympics after that, 2 world championships. I won everything after that, while she kind of fell under the radar and, kept getting 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th place in all her tournaments, and I was getting 1st and everything. So even now, even when they mention her now, I'm not bitter about it. She just, like, really using me to sell herself, you know what I mean? Like, she needs some clout, she needs some popularity, and it's like her whole life is just built on, I beat Claressa Shields when she was 17, or I beat Claressa Shields in the amateurs, I'm the only person to do it. And it's like, nobody really cares. I mean, I don't care. She didn't win anything after she beat me. She didn't win the Olympics where me and her both competed at. She didn't win the Worlds where me and her both competed at. I mean, I've stood over her on the podium. I've beat 5 girls who have dismantled Savannah Marshall in the amateurs. And it's like, nobody talks about who beat her in the amateurs, so why should they talk about who beat me in the amateurs? It's like, I'm an undisputed champ. I'm not going to keep letting Savannah Marshall live off my accomplishments. She didn't beat Claressa Shields, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed middleweight champ. She beat Claressa Shields, who was 17, and barely had any traveling experience, or international experience. I think that's, like, it was my 2nd international tournament. So it was like, and I had just turned 17. So it was more of just like, she's living off that when it's like, yo, that was 7 years ago. Let it go and fucking accomplish something, accomplish something in your own life instead of trying to live like, since she become undisputed champion, I get to say I be the undisputed champ. Like, no, you didn't. You beat a girl that was 17 years old who didn't have no international experience. That's who you beat. And she didn't beat me by far. It was on a point system, 14 points to 8. So it wasn't like, she just went out there and, like, knocked me out or nothing. It was on a point system. I went all 4 rounds. I did great in the fight. And it just didn't go my way. But it's not something that she needs to keep trying to celebrate. Like, they're going to have a party and going to talk about me every interview and every social media thing she do. Like, that's just, I don't know, it's kind of stupid to me. It's kind of silly.
Well, like I say, the the history's there, and if a fight should happen in the future, it will certainly be one that's the public will buy into. Finally, Claressa, I like to always throw it over to you just to have a final say. If you've got any closing words for our listeners, obviously most of our listeners are from the UK. I know you get mixed reception from the UK. Some people over here love you, some people over here not your biggest fan. But what's your message anyway to the lovers?
To everybody in the UK, to all my fans, I really appreciate you guys. I just got my passport today, so I should be making a trip over there after my fight on Showtime, and I plan on coming over to some big fights and to meet some of my fans and to meet some of the girl boxing groups and stuff like that. So I just want to tell you guys thank you for being supportive, and I look forward to coming over there and fighting one day.
Great words, Claressa. Thank you so much for those. It is always great catching up with you.
No problem.
It's great catching up with you. You know that. Best of luck as always for October 5th, and we'll catch up sometime after for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 204 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion Joseph Parker, and of course the reigning undisputed Middleweight World Champion, the former Super Middleweight World Champion, the double Olympic gold medalist, Miss Claressa Shields. The Prediction League is back this week. Best of luck with that. I'd like to thank you all. Honestly, it really does mean a lot to myself and Ayaz for all the listeners that we get. Remember to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Leave us a review on iTunes. You never know, you could end up getting a BoxHard Podcast t-shirt out of it. But that is about everything. Remember, enjoy your weekends, people. There's a lot of action this weekend. Tomorrow being Friday, the following day being Saturday. Lots and lots of boxing to watch. Watch it all. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekends, and we shall see you all again next week.